Morning. Hopefully the recording doesn't get corrupted and eat itself today. Oh. Well, last night I tried recording the game that I had been saying I wanted to play and do a kind of trimmed down video of the gameplay for. And so I did kind of a test recording and it did not work. I think that the game is just a little too old for the type of recording I was trying to do, because I was trying to record the window, but it's a game that can only be done in full screen, and it has these kind of weird it's kind of just interacts weird with any other apps you have open, where you cannot have them open at the same time. It will not run in the background, and so it's just it's a little weird. I'm gonna try again tonight, I think, and try to do the screen capture instead, which I would not want to do if I were streaming, but I am good with doing on a recording because I can just edit it later. And so yeah, I think that might be the best way to do it. But I think I need to get a second monitor. That way I can have it up on a separate screen and then start recording instead of recording and then pulling it up. I was thinking I might, I don't know, I don't want to buy any games again, but I might create new accounts for everything with the channel username, Phlightless Phoenix username, because I have a lot of other stuff kind of tied to the other username, which I know it's not super easy to look up, but just for privacy's sake, it's probably better doing that. But that does mean that if I want to play any online games, I'm going to have to purchase them again under the new email for any downloaded games on the computer. Well, I might be able to figure out how to share them. But I think I need to just create a whole new kind of profile on everything, just kind of keep the channel things separate from my home things, but that's probably kind of good. Make that work. Oh, I always talk a lot less in the mornings. I think it's because I'm just getting started. I'm still tired. There's some road construction over here. I don't have to drive through it, but I drive over it on the highway. It has been going on for like a year or more, and it is like a block of road that they're expanding, and it just like has not had any progress. I don't know what it is. Sometimes, you know, when they do road construction, sometimes it feels like, man, how did they get that done so fast? Like they're building a new highway in the south part of town, and it's just kind of gone up super fast. Like, I heard about it, like they announced it, it was all voted on, and then a few months passed and nothing really happened because they were in the planning stages. And then one day I just saw like construction equipment out there kind of leveling the ground and all, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I didn't drive out that way too much, like to the main part of the construction, because they started on the far side of town from where I live, and started building, and like they just, I guess they had been building for a while, but I hadn't driven out that way. I'd driven on the near side of where they would be doing it for like a couple months, and then some things changed with their positioning, and we started going out that way, and then suddenly just like all the earthworks were done, and they were starting to lay down the road and build the overpasses, and I was just like, whoa, that went by fast. But I guess it's a lot easier to build a road when nobody's driving on it. But yeah. And then the other one's just been going for months and months. I know there was some highway construction on the highway heading back to my hometown, and it's been off and on for the past like 4 years, 5 years, and like there'll just be whole new parts of the road done sometimes, and then they won't do any work, and there's not like construction stuff around and cones and all that up, but it'll just be like half a road is upgraded, the other half is still the old road for like a month, and then we don't go visit my parents for a little bit, and then we go back and it's been like a month, and suddenly the other half of the road's done for like these long stretches, and it's just like, you know, it's interesting, the work schedule of road maintenance. It just like, it always feels like when it's right in your way, it takes forever, but when you don't go around there, it goes by quick. But it's probably just a false impression given by the fact that you see it more when it's somewhere you go often. Because the human brain is weird like that and can't understand time effectively. And even if construction doesn't take as long in one place, it'll feel longer if you see it more than construction in another place. But it's always really interesting when you kind of start talking about the perception of time, because it never really works the same way for everybody either. And it's weird to think how your brain actively interferes with your perception of the passage of time in order to do different things. Because, like, you don't feel, I don't know about everybody else, but when I fall asleep, I just wake up. Like, if I have a dream, I'll kind of remember that, but I fall asleep and then I wake up. And that's what it feels like, even though I know it's been 8 hours. It's weird to think that isn't actually what happens, because your brain is somewhat active during that time, but it just doesn't make memories, and so you don't feel it. Just like how you don't have to remember to breathe or digest. Your brain just does that for you in the background, but yeah, it's one of those weird things, but very interesting. Kind of funny because, like, your brain does it with sight too, like really, really quite strong. Because when you move your eyes stop. Okay, I have not fact-checked this myself, but I've heard it from multiple sources that I believe, so. But anyway, the thing is that your eyes, when they move, you don't see when you move, so your brain makes up what's actually going on in between what you see. But that's all the time we got for now. Oh, welcome back. Ho, ho, ho. Well, it has been a very crazy morning, and I have no idea what to talk about because I hadn't had time to think of anything. Usually, as I'm preparing to leave, I kind of think about a couple of things I could say or talk about, but not so much this time. I just looked up and it was already time to leave. But, definitely, it's just one of those days again. You know, I don't particularly want to complain too much on here. I know that it's probably nothing to worry about, but I know that when you complain, you just often say things that are exaggerations or more than you actually feel because you're worried or you're having a hard time. And I don't want to fall into doing that. At the same time, it's just hard some days. You know, working is difficult. There's always so much you have to be doing. Even if you're not busy, it's just so much time dedicated to something. And I've been super busy at work the past while, but it's just so much time out of your day. It kind of seems, it honestly feels like it's not, feels like the time from your day, if you really considered it, is more than the amount that you're being paid. And like, I'm making a pretty good amount, but only compared to similar jobs, because I don't feel like the amount I get paid is equal in value to a third of my time. It just feels so much more valuable than that. And I'm not saying that like I'm worth more. I think everyone is getting underpaid. But it's just the economics of the current times that are demanding the wages we get, because it's set by the market. But it's kind of ridiculous because you can't not work. So if somebody offers you more, you'll take it, but you can't not work. So if nobody is offering what your time is worth, you still have to work. You can't just refuse to work until you reach the level you actually believe your time is worth. And the way the free market is supposed to work is that you don't sell, or in this case, you don't take a job, but essentially you don't sell until you find a price that you are comfortable with accepting. But just more and more often I'm feeling like there's not a way to do that with employment, because you can't just not work. You can't wait until the perfect job comes around. So the free market is just not going to work exactly the way it should. Because what's going to happen if you try to wait for the right job is you're just going to lose everything. You're not going to be able to pay your rent. You're going to end up on the street. So you can't do that. You have to work, but you can't just find the perfect job, and you can't keep switching jobs because people are gonna not like seeing that on your resume. And you want to work in the position you're at. Like, I like the people at my work. It's just, I don't feel like I'm getting paid as much as it's actually worth to spend a third of my time and a lot more of my effort there. And I just don't know. It just doesn't feel like, I know that's what the minimum wage is kind of supposed to help fix, is that gap between having to accept anything if you can't find the right thing, and being able, because just like there's not enough jobs is what it feels like. Because if you don't work, you don't get paid, so you have to accept the minimum paying thing. But there are so many applicants for every job that people can just give you whatever they want. There's a kind of disconnect there that's, I don't think there's a good way to really remedy it. I am not one of those people who believes that you should do away with all income and have a completely communist or socialist form of economy. I do think that some form of the free market is necessary, but the government needs to do more to ensure that wages meet expectations or to reduce the requirements to gain meaningful wages, because this is getting ridiculous. I have to work 8 hours a day plus spend an hour almost of my life every day driving, which adds up to the amount of time I spend on work being more than a third of my life at this point, with only 5 guaranteed holidays a year, and weekends are not enough. Like, that's not good enough. To get a healthy amount of sleep, you need to spend another third of your life sleeping, and then with the time you eat, you just don't have enough time for yourself. That's not okay. We need to reduce the hours we work every day. I'd be fine with even extending it to a 6-day work week if I only worked 5 hours a day. But just something is wrong. Just the way the world works does not add up. It just feels like we're constantly struggling to just meet the bare minimum. And it's really awful. We need to do something to fix that. I know an idea that's been floated around is universal basic income, or pretty much giving everybody a set amount. But that has its own issues, because then people are just going to reduce your wages by that amount. Or effectively do that. I don't think it's the money that's the issue, it's the time. The time to earn it. It shouldn't take most of your waking life just to live an earnable wage. We can do better than that. We can provide for everybody. There's enough people on this planet that if all we ever did was do things necessary to support each other, then we would only have to work a couple hours a day. But there's all these value-added areas that drive up prices and increase what we need, and all these little things that add up over time really just make it like it's worth it anymore. But there's no other choice. Have to just keep working, or else can't put food on the table. Sorry if that's a little depressing, but that's all I got for now. Alright, let's get going again. You know, I was just eating lunch, and I was talking to my wife about different kind of flavors we like, and I think I've already said how I kind of like stuff that's a little bitter nowadays. I like black coffee. I like really strong black coffee too, and I like grapefruit and stuff kind of like that. I thought, it's interesting how tastes change over time, because I know, like, the common kind of thing that I hear is that your taste buds are completely replaced every, I think it's every 7 years, maybe, which I don't know, like, if that's true or not, but it definitely feels like your preferred flavors tend to change more over time, because I know, like, kids have a much more limited palate a lot of the time, and so it makes them, like, a little more hesitant to try new foods, and they tend to not like certain flavors as much, especially not bitter things. I know I certainly didn't really like bitter things until I became an adult, because I definitely have told the story that I didn't like coffee until I was 18, but I think it's true for a lot of things that as an adult your tastes change, and I was a bit of a picky eater as a kid, and going into college I think my taste had already changed a little bit, but I had just not liked things in the past, so I didn't try them as an adult as much. And more recently, I've been trying a lot of new foods. My wife's been getting me to try quite a few new things. Probably not as much as she wants me to try, but I've been liking a lot of them. But it's interesting. I guess I am still very young. I'm only 26, 25. I honestly, let me think, I am 26. And so, am I 26? 2001, I turned 1. 2000, I turned 1. 2001, I turned 2. It's 2025, so I turned 26 this year, yeah. I don't know why I have so much trouble with my age. Like, you think it'd be easy, just look at the year and add 1. But for some reason, I always kind of have just a little trouble remembering which year I am. Ever since I turned 21, pretty much, because until you're 21, your age matters a little more. After 21, it doesn't really matter that much until you turn, like, 25. It kind of matters. 26, I guess it matters if you're still on your parents' insurance, because that's the age you get kicked off. But yeah, I mean, we already had our own insurance and all, so wasn't a big deal. Anyway, but yeah, I'm still pretty young, so I'm just kind of just getting used to a lot of parts of aging more, I guess, because, like, I've become an adult, and now there's just all these things that are different, and it's still somewhat new. Even though I've been working for full time for 5 years now, there's just a lot of things that are, like, new and different with being an adult, as it kind of changes over time. And being a dad has kind of made me see a lot of them too, where I have different opinions on things now that I have a daughter that I used to not have any opinions on. It's just, I find it very interesting just how people change over time. And it's actually a relatively short time, because if I met myself 8 years ago, I'd be a very different person. 8 years ago today, I would have just barely graduated high school, and I would just be a lifeguard, I think. Yeah, I'd be a lifeguard right now, working in the summer. About this time, actually, is when I'd be starting to work for the day. Yeah, that's interesting to think about, because I had a car, but I didn't have any real responsibility outside of having a part-time job, and I was just out of high school. I'd been accepted to college, but hadn't started yet. It's an interesting time of life. I mean, I hadn't even met my wife yet. That's crazy to think about. Because I didn't know what was coming in the next year even. Now I can look forward and see most of what's coming, but it's weird to think that I might not. I could find a new job and move to a new town. I mean, can even have a kid in less than a year. Have another one and be in a different place completely. But, people ask a lot, just like on job applications, or just as kind of an icebreaker, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I don't think most people can really predict what's going to be happening in 5 years. It's hard enough to predict the rest of the year you're in. And even if you have a very very predictable life, you never know when the wrench is going to be thrown into your plans. But we still have to plan something for the future. And so it's interesting to see that as well, because even if we have no idea what's coming in the next week or month or year, I'm still planning for retirement in 40 years? I'm making plans now, setting aside money for a time that's almost 3 times as long as I've been alive. And I mean, life feels a lot bigger when you're in the moment, because this is all I've ever known. But when you look at it from the outside, I'm only 26 years old. Like, if I live to an average age, I'm barely a little more than a fourth of the way through my life if I live to be average age. And I mean, who knows what'll happen medically speaking in the next few years. I could live to be over 100, in which case I'm only a fourth of the way or so through it. But even if nothing changes and I live close to the age my grandparents are all still alive in their mid to late 80s. And it's a lot more to it than you think, because it's not even just that my life is only just beginning. It's that there are 400,000 people in this county I live in. Well, if college is in session, but even then, 250,000 permanent residents in the city I live in, and each of them has a life. The average age of them is like 40. So there's probably close to 500,000 times as much life lived just in this city than I have personally. It's just interesting to view it from that perspective and see how much more there is. Yeah. That's all the time I have for now. And we're back for the final portion of today's podcast. You know, I'd say today is close to my birthday, but I guess for anyone listening, it's only been about 30 minutes or so. But anyway, you know, yesterday I was talking a lot about politics, but today I've just felt more like pontificating on life and time and all that. It's interesting. I was talking about how, you know, things shift over the course of time, but even just day to day, like, things change so much, and my mood has completely changed day to day. Yesterday I was all worked up about politics, but today I'm just more relaxed and just wondering about different things. But yeah, it's just somewhat interesting. I definitely use that word a lot. You know, until you start recording yourself and just talking to yourself a lot, you don't realize quite how often you use certain words. But today I've definitely realized I use the word interesting, or just say it's interesting, a lot more than is probably necessary, but it's just one of those things. You know, it just reminds me kind of the topic of accents, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but you know, it's weird how people kind of make assumptions about you based on your accent, because people can come from anywhere, and being from somewhere is what gives you the accent, not being a certain way. And so it's kind of ridiculous to associate character traits with accents, which, I mean, it's just prejudice to do it. Associate any particular character trait with any particular affectation or physical feature anyway. But with accents, it seems especially kind of ridiculous, because literally it just means you've lived around a certain people for a while. Because, a lot of people just, when they hear a more country accent like mine, assume unintelligence. Just because they assume that if you're smart, you'd go to a school in some city somewhere, and that because you went to school, you're gonna lose your accent. And I know a lot of people who in college actually did lose their accent because it was a more mixed bag, and so instead of having just an accent more like where they were from, they had more of a generic mid-American accent. Which I definitely think is kind of a detriment, because I think that accents are a good way to kind of have some identity. I know a lot of people who feel that way about their accent, and maybe it's just because of where I'm from, the Texan pride. Because I definitely know Texans can be stubborn and prideful at times, but it's because we like where we're from and kind of have an identity associated with it. And so a lot of Texans will try and kind of make themselves have a Texan accent, or, well, not force it, but kind of lean into it. And I know I do that for sure, because I don't want to just try to blend in with the way I speak and just kind of have a more generic accent so nobody thinks less of me. I want to have an accent that really represents where I'm from more, and not necessarily geographically speaking, because I have a much stronger accent than most people who live in my area, but more of my family history, because I get my accent from my dad's side of the family, which I just copied them more growing up, I guess. But I think it's something that I've leaned into more, especially recently, because I feel like people kind of been trying to homogenize the U.S. and different things, but it is definitely a thing where if you speak with a southern accent online, or just I'll see people online making jokes about Trump supporters and using my accent or something similar to it, joking about being stupid. I don't really mind, because I definitely get that it seems like the majority of the support is in the South, but the arguments being made both for and against Trump are being made in the same accent, and it's all from the cities. Now I'm getting back on politics, but I just feel like both sides of politics do not represent middle America anymore, and especially smaller towns and kind of more rural areas are not represented, because everyone is from a big city and has a degree in 5 different kinds of law and politics. There's not actually anyone who represents the average person from the country anymore. And even though people like rural areas do tend to vote more Republican, it's still closer to a 50-50 split. Like, usually it's around like 60-40 in rural areas, but that's not that big of a difference, really. Like, I know the area I live in was about, well, I don't remember exactly, but it definitely wasn't a landslide in the way that a lot of people say it was. And it's not. People just need to, I think, realize that they have commonality with people everywhere they go. You're always going to be able to find somebody who's like you wherever you go. Unless you go somewhere that's got a population of like 100 people, then you might have a little more trouble. But even then, you're probably going to find somebody who you can agree with most of the time. But people made such a big deal about, oh, it's the rural areas doing this, or it's the cities doing this, when we're all doing it. It's just the population density brings out different parts more clearly. And people just have different lives. Like, people in smaller towns are not going to see the issues going on in the cities. If people in the cities don't know how to work with farmers and larger areas of land outside of small towns, really, it's just, people need to, I think that far too much of modern politics is centralized. I think we need to decentralize more politics, because there are so many decisions that are going to change from place to place how they affect you. And I mean, you're able to do it with, I think we need to have more things like the minimum wage, where there is a national standard, but then there's also local variations on it that go up. But I think there needs to be a little more kind of variation in certain laws and practices, because what's good for one person is not necessarily good for another. But we've just lost all nuance in politics and lawmaking to the point where I feel like it just doesn't represent most people anymore, and it's become more and more disparate from the actual people that are meant to be represented by officials in politics, and the actual constituents are being negatively impacted by decisions their policymakers have made just because they don't understand each other anymore. And there needs to be some kind of shake-up in politics, but anything that shakes up politics is going to have big repercussions throughout the rest of the nation, and that's not going to be good or easy to cope with. But maybe there'll one day be something that can work it out in both directions. Well, that's all I got time for tonight. I will see y'all tomorrow.